Hello, good evening. My name is Robert Stokes and I'm here to talk to you today about different parts of a rope as well as making knots. It's very important to think about just how far back rope dates back to. Here we're looking at where rope goes as far back to prehistoric days before Christ. You can look at the caveman that utilized rope, and you can also go back as far as even with the Egyptians who used rope to build the pyramids. Now, having said that, rope has been made from many things. Banana leaves, palm leaves, even hemp. And for the most part, when you think about rope, there are some terminologies that you can think about where usually is called knotology, as well as just basic cordigan and twine, and there are other terminologies such as sisal, manila. Now when you think about manila rope, I want you to think about just your natural fiber rope, which also has the possibility of dry rotting from the inside out. And that's why you have different variations of ropes, such as polypropylene rope, which is normally used for boating, rope that floats on water. And you also have your synthetic rope, which a lot of rock climbers and as well as firemen use for life safety rope. Well, here today I have some regular Curmantle rope. And what we're going to look at is just the basic formation of dealing with parts of the rope. Now, if you take a look at this end of the rope that I have right here, and I decide to tie it onto a secure object, what you would then consider what I'm naming this part of the rope would be called my working end. And for the most part, that's when it comes to you tying objects, freeing up the other end to be considered as your standing end. Now, in between the two ropes, you have what we call the standing line, which is this component right here. So, having identified just the certain particulars of the rope, now I'm going to talk to you about some of the actual different types of bends. When we look at actually dealing with rope and handling it, what we would consider a regular bite will just be taking our rope and creating a curve. Now, if we're talking about taking our rope and taking it across a stationary item, you will have what we call a round turn. Okay, so now let's take this part of the rope back. Another version of that round turn will be something just like this. And now we have the same identical thing. Whether it's on a stationary item or not, doesn't matter. However, this would be considered as a round turn. So now we have a bite. When we have it just like this, now it's called a loop. And if you take that loop and turn it just like that, you will have what you call a round turn. Now, having identified those basic features and those basic layouts of the rope, now I'm going to talk to you about how to tie some different types of knots. So the different types of knots that we're getting ready to tie is what we call a clove hitch. And what you would basically do with your clove hitch is take the running end, drop it over your stationary item. Then what we'll do is grab that running end and bring it back across, and then we will cross over our standing line and drop it back down again. Now, if you notice what's going on here is this is now starting to form a loop. So as I bring that running end back up, instead of just tossing it over the top, I'm going to go right through the center. When I go through the center, it starts to create another loop on the other side of the rope. And as I pull it together, what you'll basically have is what we call a clove hitch. Now, with a clove hitch in the fire department or fire departments across the country, It's a very, very handy knot when it comes to lifting tools and equipment up and down stairways and even in high-rise structures as well. And it's also very good for pulling and towing and things such as that. You typically don't have a problem with this type of knot. Now, with this knot, there are some other things that we add for safety, which is what we will call a square knot, or typically known as a granny knot. And if you just take this part of the rope and bring it around and right on through the rope, what you'll have is your basic safety knot to if there ever were to be a situation where the rope will release and the actual knot seemed to get ready to fall apart, the safety knot will come into play and catch everything to where you wouldn't have a problem with the knot coming apart. The very next rope, the very next knot, and the very last knot that I'm going to show you today, we'll be dealing with a double figure 8 follow through. Now, what you will basically end up with, and this is a much more advanced knot, and what you'll basically end up with is just by dropping your knot over a stationary item, and then what we will do is we'll go ahead, we'll go around, and we will start to form, as you can see, our figure 8. Now once we form our figure 8, when you start looking at a figure 8 on a follow through, basically all you will do is just take the other part of your rope and you will retrace it through the already scheme of the rope that you already set in place and follow all of your parts right back through the knot. And as you can see, what we have is a figure 8 follow through and it's secured to a stationary item. So I would like to thank you for sitting here and looking at my demonstration on different parts of the rope, as well as the different types of knots associated with the rope. I hope you've learned something today, and I hope you have a very good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.